Welcome to History and Apparatus. In this episode, we will present a very special item from Greece that was being widely used in the early Bronze Age and perhaps even earlier in other forms. Widely found on the islands of the Central Aegean Sea, also known as the Cyclades. The Cycladic frypan vessel artifact was named that way by archaeologists because of its resemblance of a modern-day frypan. This is an item that baffled mainstream archaeology, unable until recently to definitely state its purpose as well as its practicality. It has been catalogued by them as a ceremonial artifact, or even as a handheld mirror. But today, we will escape from the burden of taking guesses from the wild plane of fantasy, and with a little help of an unexpected field of science, yet the very fundament of it, we will demystify the so-called Cycladic frypan, and we will show how this ornament served as an elaborate calculator, with an intricate connection to the appearance and disappearance of a goddess.
But where did those hints came from? And what was this so-called basis of all science? Before we proceed to the subject, it is important for us to focus for a bit at the single most fascinating, beautiful, and astonishing element in the surrounding of the human species: the sky. Humans, from the very beginning of their conscious existence, understood that their very lives depend on nature and its forces. They noticed that the sun seemed bigger, rose higher, and traveled longer on the sky during summer, and vice versa during the winter. They knew the precession of seasons and equinoxes, as well as the changes they bring along. They figured out the huge impact the phenomena had, not only to nature and the all life around them, but also upon themselves. Understanding the phenomena and its cycles meant the difference between abundant life or mere death. Having carefully observed the sky, they noticed that other celestial phenomena were also following the path of Helios. Some more closely, like a family of sorts, while others were moving slower, like a person moving slowly in the distance. Others also seemed to have an erratic yet periodic appearance and disappearance on this unreachable and astonishingly alive sky. Humans of deep antiquity understood well that their lives were influenced and governed by these celestial phenomena, so they started behaving accordingly everywhere possible. They even started relating their day-to-day lifestyle to it, especially the motion of the moon, and specific other commonly called celestial beings. So, while gatherers sought upon collecting the fruits of Gaia in an endless rhythm, hunters and fishermen noticed that there is a cycle to the plethora or absence of their game, thus organizing fishing and hunting in alignment with the changing seasons and the phases of the moon. They also started developing a systematic research and even a methodology to catalog when events will start or end. Eventually, they kept meticulous track of everything that was going on in the sky. That enabled them to predict which movements or manifestations this celestial livelihood will do in future dates. They gave us the science and its name that we still use to this day: astronomy. The Cyclades are a group of islands in the Aegean Sea, at the eastern part of the land of myth. They seem to have an extremely unique and important place even in prehistoric times. Back then though, the geography and moderate climate were quite different than in our time. The waters of the Mediterranean were much lower. Still, the islands remain relatively isolated and very safe places to live. That may well have assisted in such way that evolution in the area took its own unique path. The local geography shows lack of large plains, which in turn prevents the land to be inhabited by large predatory animals, as larger herbivores could not be sustained. A remarkable characteristic on those islands were the dwarf elephants, dwarf hippos, and dwarf horses. These dwarf horses, which are even smaller than today's ponies, can still be seen today in Skyros Island. Yet, the same uniqueness meant also another thing. A thing that would make the seeking of new lands and new resources inevitable. Since the small Aegean islands could not produce sufficient amount of cereal in order to sustain the ever-growing and prosperous population, migration for farming became a necessity, and eventually, the resourceful people of the Aegean started looking for new regions that could keep up with their demand on their precious gifts of agriculture, and perhaps, of course, other valuable resources. We can estimate that time from the appearance and indications of the proto-Cycladic colonizations of Crete. All that to be made possible, of course, required a strong set of a variety of skills that could safely navigate them onto open seas and into new lands. It also required of them to be able to minimize risks and keep themselves as little as possible exposed to the perils of the unpredictable seas. So knowledge of the positions of the luminaries of the sky and of astronomy became an essential skill of the seafaring people. The people of Greece were very confident seafarers from as far back as the late Pleistocene and early Holocene, a practice that was pretty common in the Aegean Sea, where craft and cultural contact were already widespread by the 3rd millennium B.C.E. The Cyclades has also been very important in antiquity way before the Bronze Age for yet another reason. It is a region abundant of all kinds of minerals, and the use of which was mastered by the resourceful people of the islands. Obsidian is one of them, and was very important to the people before the era of metals. It is a material very suitable for high-quality blades, but at the same time, very hard to work with. The Cycladians managed to develop a uniquely advanced and high-tech industry for the blades of obsidian. That fact, combined with the ability to travel everywhere to trade with it, made the islanders rich and allowed these prehistoric people to create an impressive civilization. All these skills of agriculture, mining, crafting, trading, and traveling required the kind of expertise that eventually gives the early people of the Cyclades the power to boost their civilization and evolve in a unique way that was unprecedented for humankind at the time. The frypan vessels first appear in what archaeologists call the first Cycladic period, which is around 6,500 years ago, and they seem to be widely spread during the early second Cycladic period, around 4,000 years ago. There have currently been found more than 140 such terracotta frypans in numerous locations stretching from the Volos area to the Peloponnese on mainland Greece and as far south as the island of Crete, but the majority of them were found in the Aegean islands. They were made either with a fork-like shaped handle or a quadrilateral one, while their main pan area usually has an imprinted decoration consisting of combination of dots, concentric circles, or simple spirals and radial patterns. Some even have illustration of rowing boats. Their elaborate form, the imprints, and the pigmentation of the frypans left various archaeologists that studied the objects scratching their heads and classified them as religious ornaments, and some other even as mirrors. And so the experts, unable to far decipher the meaning of all these symbols, deprived themselves and the world of the most astonishing and groundbreaking discovery, mankind's oldest and sophisticated astronomical calendars. But how did this fascinating discovery came to be? Dr. Minas Tsikritsis, a physico-mathematician who is also a researcher of ancient scripts and a passionate researcher of archaeoastronomy, met with his co-author Dr. Xenophon Moussas of the University of Athens for a presentation of their groundbreaking work titled The Minoan Eclipse Calculator, a presentation of which you can also see on our YouTube channel. Dr. Xenophon Moussas is the man who, with his team, solved the riddle of antiquity's most advanced high-tech device, which is an analog GPS. He is the curator of the Antikythera mechanism. At some point during that day, these very important researchers were discussing about other ancient curiosities that needed to be looked at and examined. Soon after, Dr. Xenophon Moussas provided Dr. Tsikritsis with a series of photos he had shot himself of a few of those intriguing terracotta frypans dating from 4400 to 2000 B.C.E. that were in various exhibitions around museums in Greece. Being a mathematician, Dr. Minas Tsikritsis instinctively started counting the imprinted dots that lied in pattern on the face of the items. Having worked in an observatory and being deeply interested in astronomy, he immediately realized that the number and repeating pattern of these imprints collaborated with synodic patterns of planets. He also noticed another very interesting distinction of these frypans. Some had a short fork-like dihedral handle, which looks a lot like human legs in an open stance, with an imprint like a female genitalia right above the dihedral. Because of that female characteristic, he was led to group together all such frypans and then associate the female forms with the planet Venus. The frypans that had a straight handle, some even have a sevrum imprint right above the handle, were also grouped and categorized as male. These in turn were associated with the male and planets like Jupiter, Mercury, and Mars. With his background and experience, he deciphered his new evidence based on the interpretation of marks and decorations on the prehistoric terracotta. The findings of his deciphering immediately hinted that they probably record astronomical phenomena, specifically with the aim to predict the positions of planets based on their periodicities. Yet, on closer inspection, the frypans associated with Venus bring yet another amazing discovery, a pregnancy predictor and a due date calculator that can be used up to this day. As we mentioned earlier, these frypans have been deciphered, and it has been concluded that the objects were related to the movements of various planets, such as Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Mercury. We will only concentrate on the frypans associated with Venus in this episode. As the Aegeans were observing and taking note of the notions of the sky, they start paying closer attention to Venus and Jupiter, since those are the brightest objects in the night sky. Venus in particular travels much faster than Jupiter in the sky, and its notion is very easy to follow, night after night and week after week. They came to notice that Venus has two distinct long periods, the days of which, by coincidence, are equal to 9 lunar months, which is also equal to the pregnancy period of a woman. So naturally, that planet was related with a female and signified reproduction and fertility, leading to be associated, worshipped, and named Aphrodite or Venus in Latin. Another interesting fact is that until recent years, many Greek peasants and sailors still knew very well the phases and the appearances of Venus. Most terracotta that are correlated with Venus have an imprint of an 8-ray star, which is associated with what astronomers call the 8-year period of Venus, while one of them has a 5-rayed star imprint, and probably represents an even higher knowledge, that of the 5 synods, or alignments that occur between the Sun, Venus, and Earth within a period of 8 years. This 8-year period seemed to be of an extreme importance because it is a period that is divided by the integer number of lunar months. Hence, is a period easy to track of. This terracotta artifact, which is located in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, comes from the region of Kalliandrimi, on the Greek island of Syros. On this particular item, the researchers observed an 8-pointed star, in the center of which there is a circle with 164 imprinted engravings. By adding up the 164 with the 19 points located at the bottom left of the vessel, results to 183 days. It is exactly the number of days between the winter and the summer solstice. Therefore, it is probable that the ancients were watching the solar calendar alongside with the synodic period of Venus and the number of synodic lunar months. Synodic period is the time required for a celestial body within the solar system to return to the same or approximately the same position in its orbit related to the Earth and the Sun. For example, it can be the time between two conjunctions or two oppositions. A synodic period denotes the time interval between two successive conjunctions of a planet with the Sun. Venus appears in the sky before the sunrise for 263 days and after the sunset for 263 more days. The 263 days correspond to approximately 9 lunar months. From the fact that Venus orbits the Sun for 224 days and the Earth 365 days, the synodic or conjunction period of Venus is a period of 584 days. Naturally, it is the same for both inferior and superior conjunction. After the superior conjunction, Venus becomes invisible for a period of about 50 to 53 days, while after the inferior conjunction becomes invisible for a period of 8 to 9 days. More specifically, if we add up the imprinted markers located outside the 8-pointed star, we realize that there are 584 markings, a number that corresponds to the synodic period of planet Venus. This artifact correlates and supports the monitoring of the two calendars, a solar of 365 days and the synodic Venus calendar of 584 days. Another frypan artifact that was also found in Syros Island was used as a pregnancy and due date calculator. As we mentioned earlier, the frypans that are correlated with planet Venus have an open handle like two legs in an open stance. They also have an engraved area like female genitalia right above the opening. So the ancient women knew the following. From the moment they would become pregnant, they would need approximately 9 lunar months to give birth, which is equivalent to approximately 263 days, which was also the same number of days that Venus was visible in the sky with the naked eye. Therefore, this planet became synonymous with the female fertility, and it was named Aphrodite and got translated to Venus in Latin later on. And today, we all know the association of Aphrodite as the goddess of love, fertility, etc. In the following artifact, the researchers discovered that the engraved points in the terracotta were painted with color. In this image, we see the circle of 22 markings and then 10 more at the starting point. That helped most likely to follow the menstrual cycle every day. They would dye a color in one of those markings. Such colors and grinders were found in many Cycladic tombs, as well in frescoes among ancient ruins, and were commonly used in deep antiquity. In that way, they knew that if they didn't have a period again within 32 to 34 days, it only meant one thing, that they were pregnant. From there on, they would start color yet another area. For every day, one dot colored for 234 days. Adding the initial 32 days, we get 266 days. With 265 days being 9 lunar months, a woman who knew when she would get pregnant and when it's her due date. It is probable the ancient women Also looking at the synodic calendar of Venus, apart from the pregnancy and due date calculator, for yet another reason. To probably determine some signs to predict the child's progress in life. Something similar to nowadays astrology. On those artifacts, there is also in the middle the 8-pointed star. This is also of great astronomical significance. Every 8 years, Venus has 5 conjunctions. The points of those conjunctions, when marked out, they give us the pedal of Aphrodite, or the pentagram, or the so-called Vitruvian man. All this magnificent wisdom and scientific knowledge was discovered and noted down by these seafaring islanders of our prehistory. We have to thank them for sharing and perpetuating their findings through their coded histories we call myths, and for having made such amazing artifacts to puzzle our modern brains. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for our future content.